Hey, it's Luke, the Kingdom Coach, and welcome back to the Godly Men podcast. On this week's episode, I am joined by the one and only Micah LaCerte. This man has blessed me so dearly in my life, and his wisdom is going to shine through this episode. There's not many people that you truly meet that are so authentic and in love with Jesus. And we hear about his story from pain to purpose, how faith has been the foundation of what he's built his business on, and how a godly marriage has been the secret to sustaining it all. I hope this episode blesses you as much as it blessed me, and I'll see you on the inside. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for being on the show, mate.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited as well. I'm thinking about you, and I'm looking at you, and I can imagine that so many people are like, this is a big guy. This is a big guy. But we see you so much online. So like how actual tall are you? Are you like tall as well as a bit of a unit as well?
I'm not our buddy Marcus tall. He is like gigantic tree tall. I'm 6 foot, 225 pounds right now. So I don't know what that goes over to as far as meters and kilos. Kilos about 101 kilo, 102 kilo.
Right. Okay.
And then I don't know height wise, but yeah, I'm about 6 foot tall.
You made the 6 foot mark.
Yes, I made the 6 foot mark. Yes.
I feel like when growing up, I was always just like, as long as I hit 6 foot, like I could say it. I'm not 5'11", I'm 6 foot. But I think like every other guy, my wife will say it as well. When I was starting to kind of text her and go on a date with her, she's like, "So how tall are you?" I'm like, 6'1". Like, always put that extra inch on.
That's right, man. It matters.
Yeah, it does. But I can imagine though, right? For the type of guy that you are, obviously you look after yourself, and I know that obviously you're the CEO of HitchFit and SoulFit Retreats, which is a whole conversation that we'll dive into. I can imagine that you didn't come out of the womb this way.
I mean, it's really interesting. Today, I literally posted I had no idea we were going to dive into this, but I posted a whole, content about, 13 years ago today, I won a world championship, but I started my first day in the gym in 1997 at 138 pounds at my height. And so like I was a really skinny kid that was struggling with insecurities, with depression, with anxiety, and I wasn't telling anyone. It was in secret, And so the gym was really a place that was kind of a hospital for me, during a time where I had kind of turned my heart away from the Lord for a period of time there. And the gym was such a huge catalyst of not only me getting that confidence back and crushing depression and anxiety, but ultimately being able to heal from the inside out and then turning my heart and eyes back to the Lord.
Wow. So let's start there then. So how old were you then when you were kind of this skinny, insecure young man?
Yeah, so I was raised in a family just with my mom. I was one of those kids that, unfortunately my father and I didn't have a relationship at that point. We're close now. I love my father a lot. But there was a lot of men in and out of my life. I know I'm talking to a lot of men there that may be watching this, or young men that knows what it's like to not have a father, really yearn for one, or one that's not present. And I was one of those kids. And so I always wanted that male figure in my life. I turned to sports, which was really important, in having that community and friends. But my family structure was just always inconsistent and really negative in a lot of aspects, growing up. And so through that, and you go through different traumas in life, you're left with things like insecurity and depression, anxiety. Those things go on. And as a kid, you don't know how to heal that stuff. What you need is a safe environment. You need people that you can talk to. And as a young boy, you really need a father. You need someone that you can go to, and a mother can do as good a job as she can do, but that boy still needs that father. And so when I was 18, I was really in kind of a dark place, Luke. I was struggling with not being able to talk about the pain and trauma I had gone through. Fortunately, I think God gave me what I call a lifeline at a time that I needed it really badly. And that was in the form, I always say, of dumbbells and chicken breast. And I ultimately started living this bodybuilder lifestyle because at 18, being completely transparent and honest with you, I wanted to look like guys like Jean-Claude Van Damme. I wanted to look like the guys on covers of fitness magazines. I was 18 and single. I wanted to be
Hmm.
more attractive to women. There was all of that. And then what I found out weeks within starting to work out, what it was doing was transforming my mind. And
Hmm.
anxiety and depression started to decrease. I started feeling more confident about myself, and I took that lifestyle very seriously, like a lifeline. And I started getting to the point where I started creating these goals that were so massively unrealistic at the time. I was like, I'm going to be on a cover of a magazine. I'm going to be a world champion. I mean, 8 years after I started lifting dumbbells, I was on my first cover. 14 years later, 14 years after starting working out, I became a world champion. And it going from such a pain to purpose place was how I accomplished all of that. The gym was such a catalyst of not turning to drugs and alcohol and the negativity that I had seen growing up, and really utilizing a really healthy, positive lifestyle to get myself right. And then ultimately, what I do now in helping other people heal through traumas, being overweight, unhealthy, the things that are holding them back.
Wow, wow. It's interesting because you said it spot on. So yeah, I'm 29 now. So when I was like 18, same thing. So the reason why I wanted to get into the gym was because I wanted to look great. I wanted the six pack.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up a Christian either, so I was not bothered about being godly at all. So I wanted all the women and all the attention. But like for me, I guess my hospital wasn't the gym, but it was martial arts, and it's
Yes.
kind of the same type of thing. So why do you feel like a lot of men find that kind of place for, I guess, their mental health or well being in the likes of the gym or sports, stuff like that?
Well, I think sports, athletics, something that you can really spend your time doing that can be a positive thing in most aspects. It can move over to a negative thing, which we can dive into. But
Yeah.
for the most part, you have two choices. I think each individual goes through periods of time in their life where there is literally a fork in the road, and you have to make a decision, right? A decision to continue hating and being unhealthy and not in a place that you want to be, which is turning to drugs, alcohol, pornography, all the things that are going to keep you in bondage, or to take that other path, which is I'm going to start making choices, pruning these negative things out of my life, becoming more disciplined, which martial arts is a huge factor with, and starting to eat better, these things where I have control of my life now, and I can use that pain into purpose, which is impacting or helping other people. Because it has to, at some point, Luke, and you know this, it has to be more than just an aesthetic. The guys that are driven off aesthetic alone, man, that is a dark and lonely place. And you're in this pocket of always feeling like you're being judged if you're not in your best condition. And that is a really mentally challenging and can even be depressing place to be in.
Wow. So did you experience that getting into that mentality, or did you always kind of have that sense of, no, this is more about me just releasing that pain or using this pain?
Yeah, I never struggled with that specifically. I was in such a dark place that this was such a lifeline and such almost a
Mm,
lifesaver for me, that I had connected fitness to something that was going to help me achieve things that I had never seen or witnessed in my life. And
mm,
other than, from magazine covers or success, I wasn't grown and I didn't have money. We didn't have successful people around us. I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I didn't know any of that. And so I knew the only way to achieve those things was to continue living a very disciplined lifestyle that was based off of positive choice making. And that's not only like the foods I'm eating and working out, that is the people I'm surrounding myself with, the things I'm watching, the things I'm listening to. And at this point, I had kind of turned my heart and eyes away from the Lord due to some stuff I went through when I was younger as a child. I was raised with God, but I just had turned away. And then God gave me one of the best blessings that He could have given me, except for Christ, and that was in my wife. And she was able to really help me reframe my mind and the Lord renewing my heart in a way that, we foundationally live off of Christ and that word, and then just going and helping. And I was able to truly heal, not through dumbbells and chicken breast alone, but through Jesus, and ultimately giving my life to him and committing that to him. And each and every day we try to live as godly as we can.
Yeah, wow. You and your wife are such an amazing representation of doing that publicly and in the marketplace as well, which I'd love to dive into. But before we go there, you speak about you grew up with the Lord, but then you kind of walked away in one sense. I always say to people, like, God never walks away from you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that, because I know, like, for me, obviously I came to Christ in 2017, so I didn't necessarily, I found God in one sense. For the men of God that are listening to this now, I think there might be many in this time and in this season that maybe grew up Christian. Do you know what I mean? They're in that Christian household, but they're now looking to see what that actually looks like for them. So speak more about kind of like, what was it like growing up a Christian? Why did you kind of come against God, and that journey of kind of refining your faith, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so my mother was always open, and she tried to live Christian principles. She taught me about God, and I remember going to multiple different types of churches as she was trying to find herself. And she was really having to juggle quite a few things, and had some past trauma of her own. So I think she was really seeking the Lord at a time. But as a child, you don't really understand it. You don't really get it. You're just kind of hearing Bible stories. You don't know God the way you know God when you're older and mature and your mind is fully developed. And so when you're a kid, you're really following what your parents are doing and trying to trust that what they're saying is accurate or whatnot. Where I had pivoted away from was really in my teens. We had gone through just a string of like really negative, horrific things. And I remember one night kind of laying there and going, Lord, like, I'm a good kid. Like, I don't get into trouble. I'm praying to you. I just ask that you protect me, get me out of these negative places and things and situations and experiences. And I didn't hear the Lord, and I didn't feel protected. And at that point, I became kind of angry with the Lord. And I think this message is going to help a lot of men, because it's real easy to pull away. And that's when, the devil really comes in and going, hey, the God is not with you. When what we know later in life is God is always with you, even through the worst of things. Christ being whipped to death and literally, carrying that cross down, pinned to a cross. And what does he say right before he's about to die? Please forgive them, for they, for they do not know what they've done. And like, for me, once you understand the word and are with the Lord, you understand that he was with you the entire time, even when you were being a knucklehead and turned your eyes away from him and whatnot. And so I had to go through my own journey of faith. I had gotten to a maturity level where I made a decision in my choices, and really, to lead the family that I needed to lead, I needed to be the head of the home in a way where I could cover my wife as Christ covers me, and our family, the decisions that we're making, and really build this house that we have on solid rock, so that when storms came, our house wouldn't blow over, man. And that's ultimately how it ended up happening. But it was a journey. Like, that journey I could talk 2 hours on. It was around the age of 14, 15 years old. I pivot away, start living a much more, I wasn't a bad kid, but I was making decisions that weren't Christ-like, for sure.
Yeah.
And then it really took, I gained a lot of success early on in the fitness industry. With that comes women and all sorts of things that come with that, and attention, vanity, all the things that are driven by, the success like that. And then I met my wife in Las Vegas, of all places, via MySpace, which was before your time because you were just a little kid when MySpace was going on. But I knew who she was and who she was from the minute that I met her.
Mm.
And I heard God even when I was trying to not listen to him. And ultimately, she was a woman of faith, and she helped me realign my heart and my mind and my eyes back to the Lord. And then I fully committed once I understood it.
Wow. Tell me the importance of having a godly wife, because there are so many young men that when it comes to dating, when it comes to looking for a wife, like sleeping around, or it's just about who I fancy, or oh, she's a Christian because she wears a cross around her neck and stuff like that. I sense and feel that your wife was somebody that truly God used to save and restore your life in some ways. Speak into that for me.
Because of everything that I had gone through in my past, I had always had kind of this vision that I would eventually get into some level of ministry, even when I turned my eyes away, that my story would help impact, or I was going to impact a lot of people's lives in some sort of way by being able to survive everything that I went through. So when I met my wife, this is a wild story. I had never had a woman ask this within 24 hours of meeting. I had dated some really nice women, some beautiful ladies, some ladies that maybe weren't living the right lifestyle, a wide variety of different ladies from the age of 18, up until for about 10 years there, off and on. And my wife in Las Vegas, of all places, she sets me down and she says, "Do you believe in God?" And I kind of was drawn back a little bit. It was unexpected. It was the first time a woman had actually asked me that. And she said specifically, "Jesus." And I said, "I do." I said, "But I'm very angry." And she didn't really get into detail, but she goes, "Okay, there's something there." The next day, I would tell her my entire story, which I had only told a handful of people ever. Again, Luke, I knew who she was and who she was from. We ended up, from that moment on, it was love at first sight, but it was a God gifted type of woman for me. I'm going to explain something that I tell a lot of like new people. I was just kind of doing some discipleship with a close friend. He's around your age, and he's dating a girl that has really kind of questioned his ministry and him really diving into the word the way that he is. God is very clear about being equally yoked when it comes to a marriage. And what that means is that woman and that man need to be on the same exact foundation when building that home. Because if you don't, and that person is not aligned with you when it comes to Christ, the belief of that, the salvation, God, whatnot, then it's going to be really, really stormy, and you don't get that same level of protection. You don't have that same level of order that goes within a godly home. And I've seen both sides. I've seen it firsthand as a child with a mother who chose men who had no sort of faith belief at all, and the destruction that happened within those families, alcoholism and drugs. And not that every single Christian family is absolutely perfect. That's not what I'm saying. Stuff happens. But when you're living in a way that Christ is your rock, the male, the female, the husband, the wife in the family, then there is a, and we've gone through that. And my wife and I are a unique situation because we work together too. We own the businesses together. We're together every day, almost
Hmm.
every hour, and we have been for 16 years. And
Wow.
so you got to have some God in that to make that work like that. I mean, because, God made men and women a little bit different. We communicate differently and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's crucial for those men that are watching, like that needs to be a serious thing. If Christ is important to you, you got to have a woman that lives it and breathes it. She needs to love Christ more than you and love Christ more than herself.
Wow. This just speaks so much to me, because my wife has played such a part in my journey, and like I'll probably dive into this at some point, but like me and my wife met at the same time, where I literally just gave my life to Christ. And when I say gave my life to Christ, I was like, if there's a God, like I'm surrendering to you, take my life. So I don't mean like I'm following him. It's like I'm at the point where I'm like, take me if you want me.
Yeah.
And my wife watched me be taken by the Lord. And watched me go from 0 to 100, where she was still here.
Mm.
I think sometimes we find these individuals that we know are from God,
Mm.
but when we meet them, maybe one is here and the other one is here. And it sounds like with you and your
That's right.
wife, you were kind of here at that time.
Yes. Yeah.
Speak more about that, because I feel like often we try and look for perfection. Do you know what I mean? We're trying to find that perfect person that's totally aligned, but sometimes the right person comes around and we look like this. So what did that journey look like for you, kind of bringing it to kind of this level so you guys could build together?
Yeah, so Diana she was in a position that was she for sure was walking tighter. It was on her heart, definitely more, but she had room to grow as well.
Mm.
She's very open about like where my wife is now comparative to that day one when we met is leaps ahead. But you're right, she was further along the journey than where I was because I still need to rekindle this relationship that I had with God. The most important thing is that we were both believers and followers of Christ. It will always I'm always very specific on the terminology when we talk about things like when someone says I'm a believer in Christ and I go like the devil believes in Christ. There's a difference
Mm.
between believing and following. And at that particular point I was doing some good things, like I was a good guy, but like I wasn't following Christian principles, what God needed me to do, which was minister, disciple, get to a level of healing that I could go help other people, live a life that was inspirational to others and ultimately help bring souls to the Lord. And so Diana almost kind of like was able to like lift me up and almost put like a little, we're very both competitive and we were both athletes. And so she kind of almost put this like, not a pressure, but like almost kind of like a challenge of like, hey, you're the man of this household. I need a man who that I'm going to fully respect from a Christ driven standpoint. For me, I knew what I needed to do. I was just getting in my own way and I was getting in the way of God. Ultimately, is what was happening. And so when I released that to him, got into prayer, did the things that I needed to do to really, renew my heart essentially, then Diana was also lifted. So I'm a huge pusher in like lifting my wife as high as possible. But when I look at like the structure of a home, like God talks about men covering their families. Like, so if I'm a strong roof on a family during the storm and God is the foundation, then that woman is everything that's interior of that home. Right? They're doing a lot of the decorations, they're doing all the stuff that is within that home. I'm doing everything that I can to protect that family that God has given me. And so that's kind of how I look at that and just looking at the responsibilities that I need to be as a husband, but also from a Christ standpoint, but also the things that she needs. And that's communicating with her and going, do do you need me to take time during the day to listen to you more? Certain things that like a man may not need the same
Mm.
things. And so we're big pushers of there's a book out there called The Five Love Languages.
Yeah.
If you haven't read that book, it's a good book because it helps you understand your partner and what their needs are. My wife and I are both time people. So we don't need a lot of things. We don't need gifting and service and stuff like that. We're very much, we just enjoy spending a lot of time together. I need a little bit more affirmation. She needs a little bit more of me like cleaning the house from time to time.
Mm.
So it's like you understand your partner really well. So that keeps you guys at a level place. And then you're doing one of the most important things. I don't know what the stat is. It's really, really low as far as the divorce rate, what I'm about to say. But couples that pray together, I think divorce rate is like under 3% or something. And in
Mm.
America, we're at like 50 or 60% divorce rate, And so I'm like, bringing God in and praying together brings it all the way down to 2 or 3%.
Mm.
Like, I'm giving it to the Lord and living an extremely happy life with my wife. And,
Mm.
it keeps us out of trouble too. So,
That's incredible. Why do you think that is? Because I think sometimes we can make it something so spiritual in one sense, but a couple praying together, seeking God together. Why do you think that's the secret? What do you feel like that does on the inside of us men who want to be the husbands, want to be the men of the home.
You make a decision as a man, just like a woman makes a decision. If this is your person, and this is who God has given you, then you got to look at it deeper than just your feelings or your thoughts. This is a covenant between you and the Lord. Like, that's deep. When you go into depth of the thought of that, you guys are equally yoked, and it's a covenant of the Lord between you and your wife. I always refer it back to like fitness and health, right? Like, that's a non-negotiable. For marriage, there were non-negotiable things for me. Number one, that woman needed to have Christ as a foundation. That was very important for a marriage, because I hadn't seen that, I hadn't witnessed that. I knew that was going to be pivotal. The second thing was a really healthy lifestyle, and almost an extreme healthy lifestyle, because I was living at a level that a lot of people can't comprehend or don't even want to live at that level, and my wife does too. And so, when you get those non-negotiable things in, then you guys are on this page where you're working together in a way that's not only from a business standpoint, we run businesses together, but more importantly, all the prayer work we're doing for others, helping couples, helping individuals. She kind of has this women's ministry where she's praying into a lot of women. I try to pray into a lot of men, going and doing, a ministry work with our children in Haiti, different stuff where you're doing all these things, these service-based things that are extremely important in this world, in this society. And look at the way that Christ lived, man. I mean, he wasn't living within four walls. I'm all about the church, but Christ was out ministering in places that like were not kind. So for us, we want to show Christ through the way that we make choices, and how we love one another, and how we love our neighbors like he needs us to, but also being bold and truthful in our beliefs as well, because I think I think where you can show extreme love and compassion, but also boldness and truth at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. Speak more into this then. So, because obviously you and it's Diana, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You and Diana, you're building this life together. You becoming equally yoked, but then also you decide to do something that I think a lot. Like, I desire this as well, and me and my wife have spoke about this. Like, let's build together. Like, let's build business together. Let's do life together. And I think the roles look different in whatever way, so your gifting, your talent. But tell me about that process, because I know there's so many young men right now, and I think entrepreneurship at this moment has become such a hot topic. And also, I believe that entrepreneurs are becoming, definitely for a lot of young men, the new role models, the new celebrities, the new influencers in the world, more so than you kind of like your modern day movie stars and kind of your artists. Like, it seems to be this generation are coming away from Hollywood in one sense, and they're searching the marketplace to see these men and women that are building businesses and doing things in the marketplace. So tell me more about that. What's it like for you guys to do business together, and what's it look like to build your business based on the kingdom of God?
Yeah, I love this question and I love this story. When Diane and I first started, we were living in an attic with nothing. So that gives some details of like rock bottom financials, an extreme purpose and passion for helping others, and then we have Christ. Okay. And so the fear that we had was very minimal. Like, what do we have to lose? Right. It wasn't like we had much to lose because we didn't have anything to begin with. We were both really hardworking people and we worked really well together. And so right after I met her, I was in the process of starting HitchFit, which was our first business, and we celebrated 15 years this year.
Wow.
And I just remember going, I want to wake up and I want to help as many people as I possibly can get healthy and fit. That was really the goal. And about a year in, we did something really interesting, which was we prayed about this and we were like, Lord, we want to give this business to you.
Wow.
And what that meant was like, you're going to be the driver of this. We want this business to be a business. Obviously, we have to be profitable. We're going to have a giving aspect to our business, which we've followed for over a decade. And then, we want this to be a ministry. So these people that come in, they may be of all walks of life, different faiths and whatnot. People are going to know how we walk. And I can't tell you the countless hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have come through our gyms or online that we've been able to pray with or pray for, that we've been able to build a ministry out of. And so when you talk about marketplace ministry, ministry is not just in the confines of a church walls.
Yeah.
I believe in church, but like fellowship and discipleship and ministry can be done anywhere. And I think really that's where the revival is going to come to at some point. When we have a revival, it's going to be in the marketplace. It's going to be in a way that entrepreneurs are what we call multipliers. Entrepreneurs think and operate a different way than most humans do. We multiply things very rapidly. We take more risk than the normal person does. And the way that the capacity that we have in not only relationship capital, but being able to build finances, to build foundational pieces, we build a goal that goes, hey, we want to build these whole rec centers of just prayer warriors. Like we just build it, and so when God gives us visions, we just create it, and then we're just like, Lord, okay, you said you're not going to let the oil run dry. We got to lean on this faith. And then all of a sudden you're sitting back and going, man, thank you so much for this blessing. One of those things was Haiti. We were really early on in our business. My wife had gone over on a mission trip, and she comes back and we have a whole school of children, and 85, 90 children that we're going to have to provide for monthly for their schooling and food and whatnot. Well, that's really early in our business. Like that is a financial where I'm going, okay, like but this is where you lean on the Lord. And the Lord is like, I'm never going to let the oil run dry. And we have not had a month in 12, 13 years that we provided for that school of children that are our kids, that money wasn't there for them. Even through COVID, the hardest times. And as entrepreneurships and business owners, there's ups and downs to business. And that's faith. That is listening to the Lord and being obedient. And with that comes enormous blessing. It takes action to get legitimate blessing. And we stepped into that just like Peter stepped out on that water. That's faith, right? And you got to take that first step out of the boat. The issue is most people stay in the boat. They're too scared to take that step. Entrepreneurs take the step, especially, the ones, I'm talking, specifically business wise, but those ones that connect ministry and Christ to entrepreneurship and doing it from a Christ-centered standpoint. Man, I mean, you're moving mountains, and that's really the people that we try to surround ourselves with and the ministries that we try to create.
There is so much in everything that you've just said that I think in patterns. So when I see things, I just see all these dots connecting. The things that show up is like you have this desire to build this business. And the first thing that you do, and this just speaks about everything that you've just said about you and your wife going, no, it reminds me of that scripture that says, for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord.
That's right.
And I love that scripture because the world chooses what they want to do. Other people, other Christians can choose how they want to live. And you talk about that crossroads, that fork in the road of you guys making the decision, no, for our family, for our business, we're going to do this for God. And you hand this business over for God. And you talk about entrepreneurs being multipliers. And we just see that. And it just reminds me of when God says to Adam, be fruitful and multiply. And I was thinking about the business that you guys started, because a lot of people go, oh, what's the business that I should start? But I've been thinking about this recently, and I see it on you as well. It's God says first, be fruitful, then multiply. And it seems to be the connection with yourself and your wife is that you produced a certain amount of fruit in the area of fitness, in the area of, and there's so much healing there. And then that entrepreneurial grace that God gave you to multiply that and give that to other people has really expanded and advanced his kingdom in so many ways. And then the way that you see each person that you serve as a ministry, but then also not doing what so many people do, which is like, we've got to be a charity, or I'm now a non-for-profit, meaning we just don't make any money. But
Mhm.
you see a need in another country where you're going to attach this business model to fund the works of the kingdom is such a testimony for, I believe, what God is doing right now in the marketplace. You talk about this revival in the marketplace. I believe that revival's already here and also growing. What does that look like for you? What does this revival in the marketplace look like to you? Or how are you
Well,
seeing it?
I think each individual is going to have their own pathway. I
Mm,
think looking back at my life and my wife's life, I think it's very clear the ministry that we're going into and we're stepping into. We've had very similar visions. God is aligning the very specific people in our lives for the next chapter. A lot of my healing that I had to go through and the challenges of getting to a place that I could be a voice in a place that's not talked about a lot, especially with men. Like I know where we're going. So it's about each one of those individuals, men, women, that that get that calling from the Lord, and then number two are obedient in that calling, right?
mm,
And in their lane, their life story, their situations, their skills, their traits, those disciplines that they've built over decades of work, or even if you're young into it, this fire that the Lord is giving you to be bold in. That's what we need to listen for, and then we need to be voices in those space, utilizing the principles of Christ and really pushing his word out, and the strength of his shield and his armor and his sword and everything that comes with the power of the word, really, not only from a protection standpoint, but even more so from just like a bringing souls to Christ. And there's so much brokenness and so much darkness out there, and people who may have gotten church hurt or hurt by some individual that said they were Christ-like, whatnot, and they turn their hearts away. I mean, there's so many different avenues. So when it comes to revival, I think it's going to be a lot of really amazing humans that have gone through crazy stories, that have built amazing disciplines and traits and skills, and that are also very vocal and bold. I think that's how the revival is going to come along, and we're going to each have our own pathway and our own essentially God job that we're going to need to take care of.
amazing. I think that ties us so nicely into, I'd love for you to tell us more about SoulFit
Yeah.
retreats, because obviously HitchFit was your first business that you still gave to the Lord, right? You still gave to the Lord, which is amazing. But I know that SoulFit retreats is something that God is using now, and you have such a vision for it. So tell us, what was the vision? When did you receive it? And what's that path been for you kind of stepping into this kind of area of ministry?
I want to step back real quick. So,
Yeah.
people that don't know what HitchFit is, we do online personal trainers. I was one of the very first online personal trainers ever, way back in 2006.
Wow.
Google, before you could even search what online trainer was on Google, we built that to 82 countries and over 700,000 pounds lost. And then thank you, Jesus. And then we had brick and mortar gyms here in Kansas City as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is HitchFit. That's that ministry of transformation. SoulFit came just a couple of years ago. We started getting into the retreat business, and my wife and I get to travel quite a bit. It's something we don't buy each other gifts for Christmas or birthdays or anything. We buy each other experiences and vacations together in a way where we can go hike a mountain, just like I was telling you, and being together and building those memories and those lasting beautiful moments that God presents us together. And so that's something that we really have enjoyed doing. We also found that we really enjoy creating those experiences for other people. So when we came together to build SoulFit, there was a couple different things. Obviously, we live a very health and fitness lifestyle. So there was going to be a transformational side of SoulFit that was based off of getting healthy, fit, physically, mentally, and even spiritually. We had another aspect of it that was faith driven. Now, there's people that come to SoulFit retreats that are not walking with the Lord properly and stuff like that. But again, we build a safe environment and let the Lord do what he does. We don't push Jesus on anyone. We're very bold in our faith and our beliefs, and we just love the people that are with us, and we want them to know that they're very well loved. And so the third aspect of it, obviously there's fun and all of that, but it really is diving deep into maybe some traumas that someone has gone through, some challenges that they may be going through right now. We build this extremely safe environment that people are able to open up with, and true healing is happening within 3 or 4 days. It's unbelievable. We bring them to some of the most ridiculously beautiful places around the world. We have one coming up in October that's already sold out, but we're bringing them to a place called Zion National Park here in the States in Utah. And it's something out of like Jurassic Park. Like, it's such a beautiful place. But we'll go hiking, and we do these things called moments in the mountains where we sit in this circle and people just open up and start sharing their stories. And it's a really beautiful, way for people to open up. What we got to realize is, Luke, maybe you have an amazing circle, you have a great wife, whatnot. There's so many humans in this world that don't have anyone. And they don't, or the circles they have are not lifting them up, they're pushing them down. And so to build communities that really love one another, that lift one another up, I mean, it can be life changing and sometimes life saving.
Mm.
And that's what we're trying to do within SoulFit. And so far it's been amazing. So
Wow. Wow. You talk about before in terms of like I'm all for the church, but when you describe it, I'm like that's what it is. Like that's what it is. It's just not in the context of your modern day building or your modern day preacher or anything like that. It's a group of individuals coming together and being in unity and seeking God and seeking fellowship with one another, and then that vulnerability that takes place and allows other people to heal is just remarkable. Like, what's that been like for you? Because I can imagine, like, did you feel quite nervous? Because you talk about Peter stepping out in the boat, right? Being a aspiring entrepreneur in one sense, I definitely have the traits. I definitely am a quick starter. I jump out the boat very easily. I like jump in, but I definitely feel like there's times that when he takes his eyes off the Lord and realizes he's on water, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm sinking." Tell me about that. Like, when was the moment that you felt like, "Okay, I'm there. I've stepped out," but then moments where you're like, "Got to keep my eyes on Jesus. Got to keep my eyes on Jesus."
I think it's really important to also understand that it's not always the time to step out of the boat. Like, you
Wow.
have to wait for Christ to call you to it, not your own flesh trying to get you there. You got to understand the discernment between the two, because our
Wow.
fleshly is going to want it now, where God may go, "Hey, no, I need you to go through this journey in this process. We got to stay in the valley a little bit to get you prepared to go up that mountain or to take that step out of the boat." That you got to understand how complex that is, because
Wow.
especially as an entrepreneur, because we only run one speed, and that is go at 100 miles an hour. Like, we only know one speed. So one thing that my wife and I had to learn was to be at rest and in patience with the Lord. It was one of the things that I think we had to learn to really understand, which was being in legit prayer and waiting for God to go, "I'll take the step." And anytime that we tried to make it go faster, there was always roadblocks. That door was not opening, or something, sometimes he's holding you back from protecting you from something that is going to happen, which we would end up finding out later as well. And so when it came to SoulFit, like, we didn't have any fear or any worry, because he was calling us to it.
Wow.
Right? Like, it was something that was there. So he was just like, "I need you to be obedient in this. Here's what it looks like. And so when we create it, we show up, we anoint the place we're in. We have prayer warriors there. We have amazing mentors that are Christ centered mentors. And we're doing all the groundwork to set up God doing what he does. And we're just staying faithful in what he's calling us to do and making sure everything we do, we're not allowing our flesh to come in and mess things up. Right. And that's being a good listener and allowing people to share, even if it's not in total alignment of what we believe, just listening to their traumas, their pains, their highs, their lows, and seeing a real transformational growth in them over the course of a couple days. It's unbelievable. But it's all the preparation and groundwork that allows that to happen. You don't
Mm.
just build it and they come. When you build it and they come, it crumbles. Like you have to build that solid foundation for it to grow.
I I was like, oh. And the reason why is because I've seen myself do that so many times, and I think it's a trait of that entrepreneur, like you said. I don't have I only have 100%. Do you know what I mean? But in the same breath, with thinking about young men aspirations, and also the world that we're living in, where a lot of young men are looking up to the likes of you and other entrepreneurs and other men of God, and they're seeing the 15 years of preparation, the 15 years of hard work, but they're seeing it every single day as now. And I think as a generation, we are so impatient. We're so impatient. So I'd love for you just to spend just a few more minutes there. What does that actually practically look like? You say we weren't fearful because the Lord called us. Like, we say these we say these things a lot in Christianity, don't we? And we're like, okay. And I just know there's men going, but what does that look like? Did Jesus show up in a vision? Did somebody give you a prophecy? Like, practically for you guys, what did that look like, knowing that this is God calling us and this isn't us just using our own gifts, our own talents, our own abilities to drive this forward for the Lord rather than
Yeah.
with the Lord?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's a great question. Usually with us, where we're getting signs comes from really two different things. The first thing is for sure visions. My wife has been given an amazing gift of vision. Like she's not only a vision, but she has this innate ability of also event creation and God. She has a very tight schedule when it comes to her devotion, her prayer time. She's in that every single day. We do prayer circles. We do all those things that get you prepared for asking for that, fasting, all the things that God is preparing. And you open up the words of the Lord in the Bible, and he gives you a clear path of what to look for. The other thing is because he knows we're stubborn, right? Is like he gives you the vision and you go, sometimes you go, well, was that vision actually true, or was that just me? And then what he does is he brings messengers as confirmation,
Mm.
right? And these messengers typically need to be, sometimes they're strangers, but we found a lot that we have this amazing circle now that God has given us of godly men and women, and them, we can go to them almost like as tiger teams and go, hey, here's what God is calling us to do. What I'd like for you to pray on this, and give us some feedback in the next couple days on anything that you're seeing and feeling, and then getting that confirmation in a lot of situations where you have multiple layers of essentially knowing that that is the right thing that we're supposed to do. When it came to SoulFit, though, it was so clear to us. We were having resistance in, we had actually built a partnership with a couple, and we had to go through something really tragic about a year into, or a couple months into our partnership. The husband of that partnership, uh, he ended up dying in a tragic, he had a aneurysm and died at the age of 47. And he was one of our very close friends. We love this man. He had just 2 months before that, we were able to help him get his heart back to the Lord. This man was on fire for the Lord. And so we were just like, Lord, like, I don't understand, and at this point you could think, well, maybe we weren't supposed to do this. That's not what God had told us. God said, he didn't say that that man would be there. he said that SoulFit needed to be created and that whatnot. And so in our minds, it was going to be with him. In God's mind, he's like, I'm going to take him home, but you guys need to carry on this mission and this message and bring people to the Lord and help healing and the stuff that I'm going to do within SoulFit. And that was really challenging for us because we're dealing with the trauma and the grief of losing someone that we love very much. And you can also get into this guilt of like, wait a minute, like he's not here. Are we supposed to continue going on with
Yeah.
this? Like, is this how it was supposed to be? And the Lord was just very clear that, hey, even along the road of Jesus and whatnot, there were people that came in and passed away, and he just kept going forward. And then Christ gets to the point where he ends up dying and resurrecting and whatnot. And those disciples have to go out and be messengers of that and continuing to spread his word. God works in ways that we can't comprehend fully, but you get into the word and you start understanding more of that we only have this much time on this side of the world and in our lives. And in this time, we wake up every day and we make the most impact that we can, be as faithful to him as we can, and help as many people's lives as we can. Today I woke up and I got a vision. I'll just share this with you real
Yeah.
quick. That every person that I was supposed to come in contact with today, from the post office, the first person I saw outside of my wife, to different clients, to strangers at the grocery store, I took at least 10 seconds and closed my eyes when I was with that person and just prayed for them. It was just something like, I don't know what they're going through. And I didn't say anything other than, I hope you have a good day, and say them by their first name if they have a name tag and whatnot. But like, I knew that God was calling me to do that today. That's not something that I do every single day, but like, you hear that and you feel that vision, and it's for something bigger than just you. And that really is discipleship. It really is. It's no longer about you. You're just a voice. God got you to this place and this level of healing so that you could go help people get out of what you were in.
Oh, wow. I feel like you could go for 3 hours just around that one point because it's so deep. But I'm thinking that this has been such an inspiring conversation, listening to your story, your personal story, then meeting your wife and your marriage, and then building your ministry. I always say this, like, business is ministry. I stopped saying like building business. Sometimes I'm like building your ministry, and it's a business. It's in the form of a business. For that young man that has listened today and is feeling inspired, who wants to go on this journey of building a godly life, seeking a godly marriage, seeking to get into business, entrepreneurship, ministry, what would be your 3 steps? I love a 3-step. What would be your 3 steps for that man to do in order to set him on that path to where he desires to go?
So the very first thing, let's talk about the woman first, and the relationship and the marriage and the covenant with the Lord. So the first thing you need to do, and I heard this and I'm going to take it. I can't remember the guy that I saw do this, but it was absolutely fantastic and I was blown away. Get out a piece of paper and write down all the attributes and things that you want in a partner. You want a Christ-centered woman. You want someone who stays healthy. You want someone that will be a good mother to your children. You want someone who's ambitious and adventurous and whatnot. And put, what I want from that woman at the very top. After you build your whole entire list, then change the top and said the things that I need myself to do first. Right?
Wow.
So everything that you just listed out are things that you need to accomplish in your own life first. Are you all of those same traits that you're looking for within a woman? Christ-centered. I'm going to be a good husband, a good spouse, a good whatnot. You got to get yourself to a place. What I always say is get yourself to as close to 100% place that you can, so you can have the level of discernment and choice making when that woman comes along that is a gift from God, so you understand who that actually is and who that's from. That is extremely important, I think, when it comes to a marriage. I think it's one outside of asking Christ as your savior, The number one decision that a man makes in his life or a woman makes in his life is who he chooses to marry and vice versa. It can be the most rewarding thing ever, or it could literally kill you.
Yeah.
And it can be one of the most destructive things that brings enormous amounts of trauma because ultimately you didn't do all the things you needed to do in preparation of who you needed to be with for yourself first so that you could be aware of that. Step two, I would really sit down and really focus on getting yourself as healthy and as fit as humanly possible. I
Wow.
think it is the number one thing outside of your relationship with Christ, your marriage, whatnot, when it comes to your health. And I would even put health, and sounds crazy to a lot of people. I would put your own health even above like your children and all of that. And the reason so is because you being your best version carries over to your children. Those decisions, that discipline you have, those choices that you make in your life, like that carries over for them for general, not only generational wealth, but more importantly, generational health, where they are
Wow.
a healthy individual going into those next steps of life and those stages of life strong and secure and confident and healthy, and they have those disciplines, they have those. I think it is a necessity for parents to do. It hurts my heart seeing children and the obesity stats and rates that we have in America. I think in America we're 70% right now overweight, 50 to 60% obesity rate. Your life is harder and shorter because of the decisions you're making with food and activity. So I think those are controllable things that in most people's situations, they can go in and start making healthier choices. If you have trauma, then go and get help. Find a counselor, get into the word, find a pastor, someone you care about, and start working on that trauma so that you can get healthy. The third thing is it goes back to what I said before, is you have to wait for the Lord when it
Wow.
comes to entrepreneurship. And when you take that step out on the water, that you're not going to just simply drown. So many people go, I want, and then they end up taking that step out. And we know how many small businesses, entrepreneurs drown very, very early. The rate of success is very low, after 5 years. And so you have to build a foundation that's strong. And in my opinion, like it's understanding when Christ is calling you out as a Christ-centered man. And also the other thing is not everybody is equipped or built to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay. Right?
Yeah.
Like you want that title, but not everybody has those skills and that capability mentally and what not to be that, and that's okay. You can work under an entrepreneur and do a lot of the things with them and not be that leader that has to take on that weight. That's not for everyone. But if you are being called to be an entrepreneur, just understand that every day you're going to wake up and something unexpected is going to happen. And you got to learn how to just react to it in a way that you're going to get through the storm, put your head down and get through it. And that builds that resilience and that fortitude and ultimately grows you. And that is entrepreneurship.
Wow. Wow. Good. Brilliant. You've said it all. Fantastic. Where can people find you if they want to follow you and follow what you're doing in the world?
Yeah, so Instagram, you can follow me on Mr. Hitchfit, and then my name, Micah LaCerte. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and whatnot, and I use my platform for good. It's positive posts and inspiration, education, motivation, Jesus, dumbbells, and chicken breast.
Yeah, what a great brand pillars they are. Love it. Love it. Well, Micah, thanks again for your time today. There's so many nuggets of wisdom, and thanks so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, brother.